All right. We're open.
Hey, everybody. Dusty Stanford, 1985 Division Street. I was really surprised when I learned that we were here 2 weeks ago and we tabled the AR9. And all of a sudden it's back on the agenda. Understand, correct me if I'm wrong, the school board requested it to come back? Is that correct?
Again, this is citizen participation. There is no engagement between comments and the board.
Okay. Well, either way, I guess, you heard from a lot of members of the community that had a lot of concerns. You know, there were concerns raised that there were no answers to. Do we know, again, will the sewer lines be able to handle the extra flow? Do we know the water lines will be able to handle the extra flow? Do we know the lift station will be able to handle the extra flow? There was just a lot of questions, a lot of concerns about what was going on. You know, you had a group of the community that was more than willing to step in and work with the board, work with the school to help find a solution where you'd be able to sell the property and put together something that was, I guess, respectful to the place in the community that it's at. You know, again, you're in a historic area of the village. You have people that have spent tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars above and beyond what they paid for their homes. You know, I, for one, spent a lot of money on the house I have on the corner of Division and Elm. You know, I know that there are several others in this room that have spent a lot of money on their homes. And they moved out here because of the peace and quiet. They moved out here because of the community feel that you had within that historic district. They bought because of that. And now to go to a high density is really concerning. Thank you to the board for the last meeting and tabling AR9, but coming back with it 2 weeks later, it almost felt like a slap in the face. It really did, and I think there's a lot of people here that are with me on that. The school property, guys, I understand that you want to get the most money you can so we can invest in the investment for our youth.
Hey, Dusty,
but
just want to make sure that you realize that the citizen participation is really a discussion or a commentary toward the board itself. It is not about a discussion with the school board.
No.
If you want to have a discussion with the school board, then you go to a school board meeting and attend that for those discussions.
Okay.
Please address all your concerns with the board itself.
Well, I want my time back then for your statements. But I guess looking at that, you know, with the school board, they want to get their money. I understand that. And we're happy to work with them to find something that's suitable. I really believe that you can have a density that's acceptable to those in the community where we're not going to clog our streets and the intersection of Highway 20 and Division and make it feasible. I think we can find a contractor who wants to build something that fits within that historic mold and have it be appropriate. But to put the AR9 out there ahead of this doesn't make sense. You know, when we had the gentleman looking to do 90 units, that property was, you know, set up as SR4, I believe. And he knew that he had to come in and get it rezoned. Any contractor knows that. That's part of what they do. You don't have to go out ahead of this and put AR9 on it to make it appealing to a contractor. And by doing that, you're quite frankly, you're irritating the people in the community. It makes no sense. The people in the community want to work with the board. They want to work with the school board, but they want to be considered. They want to be understood, and that's the job of village board. I sat on this board for 10 years, and a lot of times you have to listen to the community to understand what the community wants. That's your job. You're elected to do that and listen to the community. Please listen to us again today and table AR9. If something comes through that's an acceptable plan to the people that back up to it or are close to it or live on Division Street, you know, we will support it. But to just slap this on here right now does not make sense. A contractor knows that if they want more density or whatever it is, They have to apply for it at the time with an acceptable plan. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak during citizen participation?
Ted Zess, Weber Road in East Troy. I would just encourage the board to approve the rezone of this property. School board is looking for this rezone to help us to be able to market and sell this property, something we desperately need to do. The school district needs revenue from this property, and we need growth overall in this community, which any kind of development, whether it's whatever it may be, would fit into that AR9 designation. We need that type of growth. The district is at a point where, as I've mentioned to all of you, we need, as I've said before, some residential growth to start taking place. This is an infield development. It's a 5-acre property in the center of the village of East Troy that is ripe for development. And we encourage you to do this rezone as recommended by the Plan Commission and as laid out in your smart growth plan, that a rezone to AR9 makes a lot of sense at this time. So please approve that.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak during citizen participation? Grace.
Hello, my name is Bruce Littlejohn, 2003 Division Street. In regard to this AR9, Division Street can't handle the extra traffic. It's not a controlled road. There is no stoplights. There is no ways of controlling that intersection. You have Church Street, you have School Street, you have Elm Street, and there's a Fremont Street comes out. There's just too much intersections, too much traffic as it is. You put in even 36 homes or condos or whatever, now you're looking at 80-some extra cars. Then you got taxes on our sewer lines. Who's going to pay for that extra infrastructure? Leave it as a park. Leave it as something else. We pay enough on our school taxes for that property as it is. In my opinion, that property belongs to the village residents because it's school property. We pay their bill. And I remember back years ago when this 2030 resolution came out, there was somebody from the school board or the school, whatever you want to call it, sat in the old building and state, quote, we have no anticipation or no ideas of selling that property. And they should stick to their word. That's what they said 10, 15 years ago, that they had no intentions of selling it. Leave it as a park, leave it as somewhere where our kids can play, and make sure that our kids have a safe place to play and a quieter street. I do not necessarily need the extra noises we have it as it is right now. The street's not wide enough to handle the traffic it has. You want to stick more traffic on it, you're going to have a lot of accidents, which is going to make our chief of police a lot more busier than he wants to be, I bet. And just not needed. Leave it as a park or extremely low population. A couple of townhouses, fine, but nothing as high density. It's not going to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak during citizen participation?
Hello, Natalie. I'm 2936 Union Street. I actually wrote some stuff down instead of trying to remember it in the heat of the moment. So, I know you guys can't answer me, but how many people here, just thinking out loud here, thinking to yourself, how many of you actually have properties that border where this is happening? I know I do, because our backyard is directly up against it. We see the big, beautiful trees. We have the open field. It was one of the selling points when we bought this house. The house to my left and the house to my right, both built in the late 1800s. Ours, early 1900s. We crunched a couple numbers. So if this new zone goes through, what is it? It's 9 units per acre. That's let's say just 2 people move in per each unit, that's minimum 72 people in my backyard. Where are you going to dig all of the sewers? Probably not up to division because it's going to be too busy. It's going to have to go through my yard, Ed's yard. When you dig up your yard, what's going to happen to my foundation? Because it's old. You're going to move the earth. I'm going to have basement issues, which relatively just got solved before we bought it. It's just frustrating to know that we moved to this historic area to start our lives together as a young couple with all of these dreams in this quiet area, because we moved from Muskego, and quite frankly, Muskego used to be like East Troy. Spent 30 years there. It's not that anymore, which is what has landed us here. So the fact that you want to put this high-density population in this old, beautiful area is just, it's sad, I think. So why not develop it? Why not put a library? Why not do something that will bring in people to hang around and stick around, right? Isn't that what we need? People to come do the train, grab an ice cream. Maybe there's a park, maybe a splash pad, a library, mini golf, something to bring in people to come and do stuff to support our businesses. Please don't approve the zoning tonight.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak during citizen participation?
Good evening. I'm Dr. Chris Hibner, the superintendent of the East Troy Community School District. The school board has asked me to come tonight to speak and say a few things. So first off, I just want to say thank you to all of you. And what I mean by that is I've come to a few of the meetings lately. Obviously, we have our own in the school board, and I think not enough people get appreciation and gratitude given to them, and thank yous. In regards to, especially when decisions have to be made that involve disagreement to decisions and resolutions and results. I know better than that of anybody, so thank you to that. I mean that no matter what you decide tonight. Totally understand. All that being aware, let me bring up a couple things from the district's perspectives. We recognize that growth of the district is just crucial. Whether or not you're talking about the specific area we are tonight or any other areas, residential growth, commercial growth are vital to the district and the community from the standpoint of the tax base growing. We also recognize, and I think everybody here recognizes, student enrollment is our vital resource in the school district from a standpoint of revenue. With every new student, you can approximate about $10,000 if we can continue to increase our growth on enrollment each and every student. So obviously enrollment growth, families, crucial, tax base growth, crucial. Unfortunately, yes, we've had to go to referendums in East Troy. We know that we had 2 failed referendums last April, an operational and a capital. They were fairly close, but with that being said, the only way to assist the taxpayers on their tax base and have that lessen impact of the tax from the referendum or even the annual tax levy is to have growth on the tax base. With all that being said, tonight obviously it sounds like you're deciding on the AR9 or the SR4. And my big thing that I ask on behalf of the school board and the district is just a decision. And the realities behind that is to allow the school board, the realtors that are working with the school board to know the necessary direction so that we're not constantly playing tag with people in regards to what might happen with the land. From what I understand, and it's taken me a while to understand actually this developmental process, the East Troy Village Board still controls the overall project and the scope of the project and the features of the project, even if an AR9 were to be approved. Just as the district, when we contract for the sale of the land, still work through many title objections, which ultimately could result in the contract never going forward and never coming to fruition through the title objection. So I think it's just really important as the village board is considering all of this tonight, trying to balance, and I don't appreciate tough decisions, I get it. But SR4 where it currently is in the AR9 and asking which one could help with the tax base growth, which one could help with student enrollment growth possibly, and remembering, if I'm correct, I might be wrong, I appreciate all of what the neighbors are saying around that property. Boy, do I appreciate that the last few board meetings and prior to that. And I think that needs to be remembered if it goes to AR9 in regards to the scope, the features, and just the overall project in general. That still can be controlled by the East Troy Village. But I ask that the board, the East Troy board, knows after tonight, is it SR4 still, or will it become AR9, to assist them in knowing of the interests and the developers to come, so people aren't asking, what will it be, that we can say, this is what it will be, one way or the other. And again, I just ask about consideration of growth, student enrollments. I think both are really vitally important, and as Ted alluded to earlier, we're at a pretty crucial point in time. So again, I think just those things have to be considered in all the discussion and dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak during citizen participation?
Rosemary Bennett, South Street. Brought my daughter here. She suggested putting a playground there, and I thought of something that I didn't mention at one of the previous meetings. There used to be 2 playgrounds there at Dobeck and at Chesterburns. So any kid living in town, there were 3, well, minus the one off of 20 that I don't remember the name. There were 3 playgrounds you could get to from walking around in town without having to cross Highway 20, and now there's only 1. If you don't include this, where the school currently is, Little Prairie and Prairie View. So in town, the kids had the Dobeck playground, the Chesterburn playground, and Playmore Park. And now we only have Playmore Park. So it's just something in the back of your mind to think of. We don't need to sell that property to keep the school running. There are school districts that are very small. Drought School, I was a teacher there for 3 years. There's like 90 kids, and it's been around forever, I don't know, 70 years, something like that. And they have about 10 kids in a grade, and they make it work. And they've talked about closing it. Have they had financial problems like everyone else? Yes. Even big districts have financial problems. But this isn't just about this school, it's about the community as a whole. And you can make the decision now to change it to AR9 and pave that path and make it easier for it to become a place where you will put high-density housing, and you will never get that back. That property can stay for the community, and we can use it for something. Does it have to happen next year or in 5 years? No, it would be nice to use it sooner than that, you know, a library or a park or another kind of community center, better than the one that is at the old Dobeck, because if we keep using the family community center at Dobeck, someday they're going to say that building is too old and they're going to have to tear it down and build something new instead of that. So we could use this property for the community, whether it's for the school district or the village or something else like Lyons Public Library number 2. Keep it for the people in the whole community. I've grown up here. I chose to move back here and raise my family, and it's a great place. If you went trick-or-treating yesterday, you would see on Division Street, it was like the best trick-or-treating street in East Troy, all Main Street, if you wanted it busier. But we don't have to make that decision. You make that decision to make it an AR9. It's just leading the path for that to happen, and the school board, like he said, needs to know. Let them know. Just, we're not doing that now. Maybe leave it sit, get a committee of people together to make some better decisions about this. Wait, but don't change it now, please.
All right, anybody else who would like to speak during citizen participation?
Hey, Ed Hinsberger, 2944 Union Street. My backyard butts up directly to the property that's going to be for sale. I kind of feel like this is Groundhog's Day. I know a lot of us have been out here the past couple times. I think the biggest issue is the only plan we've seen for AR9 is the 90 units. For me personally, that's where, I'm drawing the line. if there was another proposal, if it was AR9, I think it would be a different discussion. But with only having seen 3-story, 90-unit apartment buildings, that's where my mind goes when they say changing it to AR9. If the school board has a developer that wants to do something different, you know, townhomes, cottage homes, I don't think you'd get as much kickback from the community if we saw a plan. But at least in my mind, if we're just going to give up the zoning now, we don't know what that plan's going to be, and, you know, we're going to kind of lose our options to fight against it, essentially as their property owners who are going to be affected by it. So that's really where my opposition is to it. You know, personally, I'm not opposed to something going back there. Eventually, it's going to happen. You know, it's prime real estate. But if we're giving concessions now, it's out of our hands. So I think that's why people are so uncomfortable with it. The other issue too, there's a lot of people saying we should do that, we should do this with it. They're not the ones whose lives are going to be affected by it. If people work from home, what are they going to do for the next 6 months to 2 years for construction? You know, what are families going to do? You know, anytime us who live in the area go outside, we're going to be the ones staring at it. It's, you know, definitely going to change, you know, some type of quality of life, whether it be, you know, do I want my kids running around with, you know, that many buildings behind? Can I enjoy my backyard anymore with a bunch of windows staring in? So it kind of feels like we're really on the defensive just because we don't know what's going in there. So just, you know, giving up the zoning now, that kind of feels like a defeat to me, that we don't know what's going to happen. So keep it what it is. If they come up with a solid plan, you know, we'll all be at the zoning meetings. We'll all see what it is. But we're putting the wagon in front of the horse here. So appreciate what you guys do. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak during citizen participation?
Emery Barnes, 2020 Division. Why do we have to have a big building there? Why can't we either make it a park or make it like it is, residential? Break it up into lots, build houses there. Why do we have to have a big building? Is that necessary? Why can't we make like the whole community is? Houses. Single-family houses. Why don't we try that? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak during citizen participation?
Alvin Mordo, 2053 Division Street. I don't know, I expressed myself at the last meeting, and it pretty much falls in line with all the opposition that own property around there. Since then, though, I've noticed, I tried to call the realty company. I called them, and they didn't return the call. Then finally I messaged, and then they returned the call, which kind of made me angry. Not today in a position to buy it, but I could in the future. The other thing, fine lady over here, after the meeting, brought up park housing. I saw that out on the East Coast in some film or something. These things are designed for an aged couple, not for the nursing home yet. And they were small units, probably could have been prefab. But what was neat about that was the walkways. They had sidewalks between all these little deals, little place for gardens and stuff. You could put a bunch of them in there. They done the same with the veterans have something similar. Now, the point they tried to get to that realty person was, what have you researched? Or is this just where you sit on your butt and then somebody comes along, gives you a bunch of money and a big commission? You better earn it. Tell us what would work there. That would be okay with everyone. You know, you should have been yesterday on Division Street. I don't know, probably 1,000 people walked up and down that street. I mean, you got to buy a bunch of candy, but they sure are neat. You know, I mean, they're just nice little people, and that's what we got to protect. Is a village that has a reputation for having a heart and being human and caring about things. We sure as hell don't need a First Wisconsin building built there, or a landfill, or some other, who knows, huh? But that's what came to my mind. I'd bet if we did it right, we would get some good federal money out of that. They're always throwing, look at them crazy people. They're always throwing money out, you know. So that's the point I'd like to make is pursue something. Don't wait for somebody with a big pocketbook to dump some garbage. That's not good. You know, we're human beings. You know, we care about one another and stuff, good or bad. But I mean, you know, we get by, and that's what we have to try to maintain there. I'm sure we can come up with something that would be beneficial, especially if we can get some grant money in there. I'd like to see that with a walkway down right past Doback over to the other facility. Who knows in the future what would design? I mean, look at the Milwaukee Lakefront. People go down there. I mean, because of the appearance and the walk. In fact, I can recall Disneyland. You got to pay to go there. They had a idyllic village built was part of one of the attractions down there, and I thought, yeah, that's East Drive. That's what it was. Nice homes that people took care of their stuff, and you know that's what we really want to protect that. But I'm sure on the money side, we can come up with a proposal, especially if we get some grants to do this. But I just have been so busy. I'd like to have at least that realtor, someone, look into these developments and how they put it together. I mean, that would be best for everybody, especially, you know, older couples. They don't want to be thrown in a nursing home. If they can afford one of these little houses with neighbors 10 feet away between the buildings and it's all well kept, like a park, that's my thought about what would really fit there. Or you could go with small office buildings, not a house, like an insurance salesman or somebody could do the business there on a small plot and have the access they need in and out without high traffic and high population. Something in that range. But I'm not a realtor or an architect. I just know there's a right way to do things. And that would be the right way to progress with this, to do the research. Damn, this thing barks back at you. Anyway, that's it. I just we don't need any zoning if we don't know what we're doing. I mean, if we're strictly committed to a large 90-unit outfits, well, then maybe that would be it. But there's nothing in that realm that's even feasible. So the idea of committing to a zoning is just out of place. we take some time, let's get some research. See, these people over here, they got what do you want to call it, like, depending on how angry you make them, you know, they're a group of people. They should be recognized. Whatever is on that list in opposition should become a group, a word for you guys, where you're not having all of us jumping on you, you know. So I would like to see this organized, and I'd like to see some research done to where something that'll work for us now and then, you know, down the way. So that's about it. Okay, take care.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak during citizen participation?
Sandy Stanford, 1985 Division Street. On Tuesday, October 19th, after the previous village board meeting, I sent an email to the village president, Scott Seeger, through the village website, thanking him for tabling the rezoning of 2031 Division Street until questions about the current sewer capacity could be addressed and answered. I want you all to know that to this day, my email has been completely ignored, which is infuriating. I specifically asked Mr. Seeger what number of residents can our current sewer system handle, and what is the process for calculating that information. I think it is reckless to go ahead with making a decision of rezoning this to AR9 when we have no idea what's under that street. It's just going to be another tax bill for the residents of East Troy.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak during citizen participation? Anybody else that would like to speak during citizen? One more time, anybody that would like to speak during citizen participation? No, then I will close citizen participation and move on to consent agenda. One motion and a second will approve all the following items. Any item may be pulled from the list and voted on separately.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider request from East Troy Lions Club for repairs to the food stand at Ross Miller Park.
So I wanted you guys to take a look at this. This was a request from the Lions Club that they had sent in. Oh, okay, sure.
Dan Middlestead, 1646 Thomas Drive. This is a simple one, I think. Really all, we checked out from the East Troy Lions Club, and we used the food stands at Park, or whatever. Anyhow, we noticed the hood system that's in there, the vent system that's in there. I believe Jake has checked it out also, and it needs repair. It's filthy. It's leaking oil out of the back of the stand. So I had a company called Hood Cleaning Incorporated come in, take a look at it before we burn the place down. The building is technically owned by the village. We just use it for all our festivals and so on. They gave me a quote to fixing it of $1,452.50. Plus, we have to contact the electric company to disconnect the line that goes over the top of it while they pull it apart and so on, so they don't get electrocuted, which is free of charge by the electric company. My basic question is who's responsible for this bill? I'm not trying to put it on the village. I just don't want to do something without the village's approval. If it's our expense, I have no problem doing it. If it's your expense, I don't want to have liability come apart, be part of it with the village. So I'm just requesting an answer. Who's responsible?
So I did go take a look at it, and there's definitely a need to do it. There's some screens in there that are, there's a lot of grease buildup on there, so absolutely there's a need to do it. I did have a conversation with another Lion, Mr. Biersack,
Right.
and he shared with me that this is something that evidently the club used to do, and they would do it annually. So my concern is I just wanted to make sure that the village board was aware that this is something that's probably gonna need to happen annually. And as far as I can tell, the Lions Club is the only one that uses this piece of equipment. We had reached out to a couple other organizations that use the food stand to see if anyone else is utilizing it. And as far as we can tell, no one else has been. So I guess I just wanted the village board to weigh in on this, with what your thoughts are.
You own it, right?
You own the building, correct?
And the equipment inside of it?
I don't know how that all came about. I don't know if you have any insight to that. I have no idea.
I believe the Lions Club purchased it from some other restaurant, whatever it was, and had it installed in there. As far as cleaning it annually, I don't know if that's true or not. I've been with the Lions Club for the last 7 years and worked in a food stand, and I don't remember anybody cleaning it, but it needs bad repair. We thought the fans were working, they're not. The belt's not even attached anymore. You know, so it's like I say, it doesn't matter who's going to pay for it. We can afford to do it, but I just want to make sure that we have permission to do it, you know, one way or the other. So it's your decision, you know, which way we go with it. So.
Jason, when you looked at that, did you even notice if there's an ANFO system in there?
I don't know what that is.
The fire extinguishing
Oh.
system that's piped in?
There is not.
No.
But it's not a building that's occupied with,
No, I understand. I just
seating,
wanted to
so-
find out.
Yeah, because of it not having an occupancy with capacity, it doesn't have to have that system involved in the kitchen.
I understand. I was just curious if it was there, if it needed service also.
We've done most of the upkeep on the building over the years. I think we've basically painted and put new doors in. You know, we've done a lot of the maintenance on it already, you know, over the years. So this is just something that's, I think it's a major piece, and we just want to question, you know, what we should do with it.
I would say, depending upon who we decide is paying for it, we probably should just outline an agreement so that we've got it documented, so that in 7 years' time, we not questions about who owns what and who's responsible for what.
I presented papers to you on the quote from this Hood Cleaning Incorporated. So that's the only company that I contacted, but from what I understood, talking to different business owners that use that type of thing, they've used these people before, and supposedly they're very good.
I guess the initial question to me is the ownership one. I mean, if the village is going to pay to maintain it, are we saying that the equipment then is going to be owned by the village as well? Or, I mean, if you guys installed it, theoretically, you guys could pull it back out as well.
I suppose we could. I see no reason why. We've been there we've had festivals in East Troy for the last 83 years. And I don't think it's something that we're going to pull out, you know, now. So like I say, it's just a question. If you think we own it, it's fine. All I want is permission to get it fixed, one way or the other.
So, Chris, just in a identification that the buildings are owned by us, a piece of equipment that is a fire hazard, it's in the premise of our building, even if if it's owned by somebody else, the hood that goes out of the rooftop. So it's not a piece of equipment that really can technically be removed without
It sounds like it's become a
damaging the
fixture
building itself.
Yeah, it's become a fixture offense.
It's ours,
Yeah.
as far as I can see in my mind.
Yeah. No, and it's a public, it certainly qualifies as a public purpose. I mean, the village could certainly authorize spending the money on it if you want to, because as you say, it's effectively a fixture now, part of your building. If you want to take a more aggressive position, you could say, well, if you guys chose to put it in there, you guys need to maintain it indefinitely. At some point, it becomes sort of a public good.
This wouldn't be $1,500 every year or every other year if we're more aggressive in cleaning it.
Again, I'm just going off what I was told is it's something that has to be cleaned once a year, so it seems like you're saying something different, but that's the understanding I had.
I can't say either way whether we've cleaned it every year or not. I know Johnny has pressure washed it and so on, but I know that fan has probably been busted for at least a couple, 3 years. So we didn't know it because it was still making noise. The wheel was still running, but it wasn't doing anything, you know. So, but it's just something that's for the community, and like I say, we're the ones that use it all, so I have no problem with, you know, us. We will maintain it until it gets to the point where it needs replacement. Then we'll come to you again and see what you have to say about that.
But anybody else that rents that facility could use that piece of equipment.
Yes.
So technically, who has ownership of it?
One of the things I was thinking as I was listening to this, for other types of equipment that are used during special events, there is a fee maintenance purposes.
That's something that you could here, Jason?
Well, I think if it became ours, which I think we would almost be agreeing to if that's the direction we wanted to go, then I think we would have to.
They have companies that do that. Jason, no offense, but there's companies that go to restaurants that inspect the hoods and the systems in there and the exhaust and the fans and the belts and everything.
I'm assuming this company here probably does that.
And I can tell you right now that if you do it on an annual basis, it's gonna cost a heck of a lot less than what this bid is gonna be, because, you know, who knows how many years it's been since it's been cleaned or repaired or anything. So they're starting from scratch. But this system like this needs to be done on an annual basis if you want to prevent a grease fire. Because, you know, those buildings, the Lions built those buildings. Wilfred Sawyer donated the money from the meat plant back in the 30s, and they built those 2 buildings out there.
Right.
And then they turned them over to the village of East Troy. That's the Lions put that stuff up for the park, right?
Right.
So I think whatever we do, we have to make sure we're fair, but to maintain it, I agree with you, Matt. We got to figure something out to be able to keep that heritage going.
Lori, when do we approve the annual fee schedule? Have we already done that?
We have not done that for 2022. That's coming probably the next meeting or December. You can add something if you'd like.
I will make a motion to have us proceed forward with this, and also ask that Jason talk with this vendor or other vendor else about what a rough estimate would be annually, and staff to propose back a fee schedule for that for going forward. But let's get this one.
In other words, your motion would be that the village pays for this?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good.
Make a statement here?
I'll second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to say, you got to remember too that we only use that stand for 4 days a year, basically. This year was a little bit different because we had Oktoberfest, but I don't think we're going to have that anymore. But basically, it's just 4 days that we use this thing. So, how much, years are going to get dirty? This has probably been this way for the last 4 or 5 years at least. So,
maybe you guys could have Oktoberfest if it worked.
Well, the problem is no one wants to come to it. So, last year was great. This year it wasn't very good. So.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
So just maybe a point of clarification. So then what I'm hearing is we'll assume that the village has ownership of this piece of equipment. Is that what we're saying?
I would say so, and if we need to, draft an agreement or something with the Lions Club, I don't know if that needs to be formal.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, consideration of possible change order related to the Village Square project.
Okay, so when I asked to have this put on the agenda, I wasn't sure what was coming at us, for, topic here, with the Square Main Street project would be winter concrete costs. Initially, we were provided some numbers, somewhere between $10,000 and $30,000. And then the contractor was asking for indemnification of warranty going forward for any concrete that was placed after November 1. So we really don't have an official change order before you. And the warranty piece has been taken off the table. So in other words, the standard 1-year warranty after substantial completion will remain in place. After some negotiations, what you're looking at is the proposal in front of you is for $8,000 and change, for that winter concrete, for the different mixes and additives. There's some shared costs. The $8,000 is the village's piece in that. There's some shared costs on the contractor, one of them being covering of the concrete below certain temperatures. When the concrete gets poured during the day and then it's going to fall below a certain temperature at night, the concrete needs to be covered. That will be on the contractor. And the other thing we said was, look, we don't have to pour Church Street sidewalk this year. That can wait. If you want to charge us more to do it, that can wait till spring. Contractor came back and said, no, we want to get it in, get it done. We'll pay those added costs. And then, like I mentioned, the warranty piece is off the table. So this is really the path to getting this thing done. This and the contractor's doing what they say they're going to do. This is going to get us a good final product. I do want to mention that we will have some potential snow and ice control issues on this green concrete this winter, and that's something I'm going to probably be bringing back to you at the next meeting. I don't know what that is yet, whether that's us supplying some sort of ice melter or something. I'm not sure yet, but that's something we definitely will need to be aware of and make sure it's handled properly for this winter season.
So you basically, so people don't start throwing salt out the front door.
Correct, yeah. Rock salt is going to be harmful to that concrete, so we're starting to look into potentially some other products that could work that maybe we purchase and supply to those property owners so that they don't have to worry about it and we don't have to worry about it.
And Jason, that sort of thing would only be for that, for just this winter?
Correct, just for this winter.
And there's no county component to this?
No, there's not.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed change order with the, a statement that we hit the substantial completion date.
Could I ask, what was the quoted completion date?
November 24th.
And just for clarification, what you're looking at, what we're talking about right here, right now, does not allow for any additional time.
Past the 24th.
Correct.
Got a first and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, consideration of recommendation from Planning Commission to approve rezone of subject property located at 2031 Division Street, RA 495400002, from SR4 to AR9, East Troy School District applicant, application 2021-25, tabled from the 10/18 meeting. Chris or Ted, do you guys want to speak on this at all? You are the applicant for this.
I guess I did have a couple of questions for either you, Ted or Chris.
Come up to the podium for any kind of, if you field any questions, so please.
So I know you guys have had the property, I guess, out for sale, I guess is what.
Few years, 3 or 4.
Can you talk about, I guess, what you, beyond the 90-unit proposal that was fairly recent, anything that you've heard from interested parties, any commentary about the zoning, anything like that, about why AR9 is the right zoning for that from a marketing perspective?
We've been approached by a few different developers over the time. No other formal offers have come in besides this one. Everybody that's looked at it, looking at a density of within that 8 to 9 to 10 units per acre. Just because of the finances of any type of project, there's no way single-family homes could ever be developed there, and any developer to make money on it, based on the development cost you'd have to sink into it to put roads in, water in, sewer in, you could never do it on 5 acres. So everyone's looked at a reasonable level of density.
And I guess, but even, has anybody not made an application, or I guess made an offer, I should say, simply because it had not been rezoned yet? Did you get that impression?
Not really. It was more of timing of things, I think, based on why they did it or did not make any offers. I mean, people were looking at it, COVID hit, things kind of fell apart, and once we started getting in a roll of things again, we got this offer.
I did have a conversation with Gina, one of the individuals marketing this project right now. She just finished up on a deal in the Madison area with some cottage housing that she's actually marketing to that group right now to try and bring them in to take a look at this property. But again, AR9 would be the only fit for that cottage-style housing. That's what I've heard about any kind of development happening or potential development in the property, and that's happened within the past 4 days that we had that conversation.
And that's how the school board looked at it too. This type of zoning just seemed to fit for what developers are looking for on that size of a property as an infill development in a community.
Scott, for the sake of discussion, just a little bit here, could you kind of just cover what the cottage housing was, please?
Cottage housing, it allows for a certain density of population, but it's single-family homes, all within a city block perimeter, or allowable up to about 8, I believe it is what we looked at in past planning commission meetings, 8 units per acre. And it's exactly as Al had identified. It's small, 2-bedroom homes type of thing. Some do or some don't have basements in them, but it's more of a community type of setup where, you know, sidewalks, connectivity, park systems that are within those areas, all put together by the developer, like its own little community. It's called cottage housing, and we've approved that potential development at the planning commission level, and it may be appropriate for this area. We didn't identify where we would allow for it, but we did say that there were certain areas in the village as a planning commission that it may be appropriate. And I think this is one of the areas that was discussed at the planning commission level, that this might work in that area. That's a perfect picture of what cottage-style housing looks like. No attached garages, separate parking facilities, like I said, very connected walkways and things of that sort around the community.
As not a member of the Plan Commission, can you help me understand the difference between AR9 and the TR8? Like, why is AR9 required for this?
Tough one for me to answer. AR9 to TR8, I have to look up the side-by-side comparison of the two again.
Yes, because, you know, when I looked at the map too, so like I mean, just for the benefit of anybody else who hasn't looked, the townhomes that are like over on Edward Street, that development, that's all AR9 for today. Most of the residents who've spoken today, they're TR8 right now. They're not even single family or single residential. I guess the TR8, it just says provide for attached two-family residential development, duplex, flats, and twin houses, single-family homes, and uses accessories to and compatible with residential uses. Pretty much the same thing at AR9. It just seems like a density. So, but I couldn't tell what's the density limit on a TR8. One.
The 8 means 8 per acre.
I think it also is, I'm flipping the code as well, the TR8, you're limited basically to 2 units, whereas the AR9 allows up to 4 attached dwelling units per building.
Oh, I guess I'd have to go look at the GIS. So what you're saying is, at a TR8, those would all be, you'd have to subdivide the lot.
TR8 would allow for 2 attached buildings on the property versus TR9 or AR9, 4 to 5 on the same single acre.
There are different, I mean, you could do PUD zoning over the top. There's different ways to structure it, but that's the concept.
And that diagram that Eileen shared with us earlier really showcases that 4 to 5.
In that Madison development, as an example, the developer is absorbing any reference to any sewer costs, water main costs, things like that.
Not unless it's elected or by somebody on the board says that you have something that professional opinion merits value in this conversation. If I've already identified that this is something that is not part of an open discussion. We had the citizen participation, and I think that that's where we need to have that conversation held.
Jason, to some of the residents' concerns, so let's just say that we put in a cottage development like that, and we need, you referenced it to the last board meeting, you know, we have to do some lift station upgrades, things like that. Lift station obviously is not right there with them, but would there need to be potentially any water main or sewer line work on Division or the surrounding streets?
Knowing what little I know about it, I would assume that the main concern would be fire protection, which is obviously water mains. Division Street has 6-inch water mains, so I would see that probably would need to be upsized. So, like we've talked about, we have the water capacity and we have the treatment plant capacity. We just need to know that we have the capacity to get it to the treatment plant.
Would there be any need to go across anybody's properties, or would that be totally?
That should all be able to be done within village right-of-way.
On Division or on other properties?
Again, knowing what I know, likely that it would happen on Division Street.
Surely other people have questions.
Did Gina say, when she may be bringing these people to, or give you a time?
Oh, she was just, like I said, closing a deal with them about 4 days ago, last time I talked to her, and that sent me a picture of the development and thought that this was someone that would fit this area and was trying to get them into East Troy to market the product, do her job.
Talk about the size that they're doing at the facility.
Meant the number of units that they're gonna do.
That's all determined by us by the Planning Commission. Really what we're allowing for, whatever they may have done in Madison is different than what we would allow for or potentially have happen within our village.
Right. I'm just curious if they are looking to put in 5 to 6 per acre, you know, or 10 per acre, just to get a mindset of what that development.
I think when we had our discussions at the Planning Commission level, it was about the 4 to 5 per acre. That was really what we were targeting as our mindset on what we allow for in cottage housing, and it made sense.
We figured 5 was gonna be a little tight, but 4 would have been, especially if they wanted to have a little more parking.
Yeah, 4, you're pretty much at a city lot anyways, per acre. wouldn't forfeit into the current SR4 though.
I don't know that it does within whatever the development is. I'm not the developer of that property, nor do I have any plans in front of me that
So I'm understanding, empathetic, of the challenges the school board's had in marketing it prior to, tearing down the building and then, your revenue situation. But I think, the concern that I have is that we don't have that development here. And I'm not saying that, no, never AR9, my opinion, speaking just for myself. But at the same time, we kind of were talking about AR9, and we had a developer come in and say, well, they wanted to do a 90 unit, which was no way ever going to fit in the AR9 anyway. So it was kind of like, we kind of got everybody stirred up over something that wasn't even going to happen anyway. And I'd like to just see, a more detailed plan from somebody who is a developer. Like if Gina's got somebody, I'd love to have them come and talk to the planning commission about it. But, we kind of did a conditional use permit like this for another property, and it expired. And then we're back talking about it again. So just see a proposal. Not in the planning commission, though.
the only thing that I would say to that, in my thought process, is if you're searching at home, attached, not seeing everything else that's a possible home for you. 4-bedroom was with price range, and it was exactly the location, but you didn't have 4-bedroom. You got this identification that you've got a property that is single family. You've got a school district that has been trying to market this property for over 4 years as a property. Didn't get anybody in there for have the potential for an AR9 development to happen. This cottage housing, of which we would allow for in that area. But if nobody's out there with this information saying that it's available to do so, why would they ever search it? Why would they ever look at East Troy? Our industrial park is a really great example of that. The developer in our industrial park identified early on. If you don't have some kind of road or identification of where a building can go, they can't just look at a cornfield and say, yep, I can imagine my business there. Really kind of the same concept along this AR9, in my opinion. Not looking for the SR4. If you're looking for an AR9 for your development that you want to do within a community like East Troy, it doesn't state that. Not a possibility. I understand the concerns of every single individual that lives on Division Street, South Street, or anywhere near where this development may happen. I lived on Division Street when my first home here in East Troy. I understand how quaint that roadway is. I do empathize with every single one of you, and that's why, as we sit on the board here, and as I sit in the planning commission as well, I would never allow for some kind of monstrosity to be put in that area. The idea of cottage housing really makes a lot of sense. It makes perfect sense for that area. It fits. Quaint. It's exactly what East Troy is, and that's the kind of development that we want to have here. AR9 allows for some kind of developer to do that. Someone came back to us again and said, we want to put up another 90-unit, 3-story building. There's no way it's going to happen. The board and the planning commission would not allow it. We want to have an opportunity for something like this cottage housing that we have on the screen right now as a development in that area, and the possibility for the school district to be able to market that. It makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me to restrict them. Yes, a park would be amazing. We'd all love to have parks every single day, but we just can't afford it. Very expensive to maintain parks, to build parks. These things are not free. Our taxes are high right now. I pay the same taxes. I live in this village. Every single one of the people that is on this board pays the taxes and lives in this village. We all have to be responsible about what we're doing with this community. We would do that. We would be responsible with it. Responsible with whatever development happens within that space. But in order to market it, in order for a school district to sell that product, they have to have another option, because guess what? It hasn't worked so far. Don't need any more comments from you, and I will ask that you'll be removed if you.
So Ted, you had sent an email a couple weeks ago about, you were stating that the school district is in a vulnerable financial position.
Well, essentially, we have not been able to pass an operational referendum the 2 times we have tried, and we are facing some severe budget cuts due to that. We're under revenue limits from the state, and we're set. So either we need the East Troy Community School District as a whole to grow in both residents to get more kids into the schools and in tax base, or we need help from the taxpayers that are already here.
We just built a new school, so I guess what was
basically the schools that we had at that time, Dobeck and this Chester Burns building that came down, were buildings that were not suitable for where we saw our district going. So that's why the new school was built and approved by a referendum by the voters in 2015.
You also say it's desperately needs expanded tax base.
Yes.
I'm still trying to understand what happens if we don't get cuts, but what kind of budget. Trying to understand your.
We've already cut almost $14 million over the last 13, 14 years of cost-cutting moves in our budgets to try to balance our budget every year. We're facing that next year. We're looking at probably close to $1 million. Take that back. About $400,000 next year, over $1 million the year after in budget cuts that we have to do to balance our budget. So we can only raise our taxes so much due to revenue limits, and we don't want all the existing taxpayers to pay more and more and more every year. Growth coming into the community brings more taxpayers that can help pay for that. Me developing this property, which is sitting vacant, that the school district has no desire to use anymore, into either a residential type development to bring more residents and kids to the district and improve the tax base, is a win-win for the district. Yes, the neighbors have some concerns, and I think we can all work together to find a development, a cottage type housing that makes sense for everybody. But for us to market that property, as Scott mentioned, we need some flexibility, and the AR9 offers that flexibility in trying to sell it.
That the cottage houses.
5 is what the 5 per quarter acre?
So does SR4 cover that?
Per quarter acre it was.
Does SR4 cover 4?
No. The cottage development is 4 to 5 in a quarter acre parcel, not in a 1 acre parcel.
SR4 has a minimum lot size of 10.
Well, there's no guarantee, even at AR9, that anything's going to happen. You know, it's just an opportunity to market. So somebody might come back and say they want to put residential homes in there. You never know. So at the end of the day, it gives you more bandwidth to developers.
Correct. And overall, we just want to sell this property. All the taxpayers of the East Troy community, not just the village, but all the townships, they own that property. And they want to see a return for it since it's sitting there vacant now. We owe it to those taxpayers to try to sell it and get the most value out of it.
I mean, we've had a couple of years of pandemic, so 4 years, but you can probably take out 2 years just because.
Ted, there were some residents who kind of talked about, they kind of had some interest. Has any group approached the school district of local residents to perhaps purchase this?
No, I've heard nothing.
I'm curious, and you don't have to say anything, Ted. I'm kind of the idiot on the board here, but I'm going to ask the question anyways. What is the school asking for that property? roughly, I'm ballpark it, it's,
450,000-ish.
okay.
Bring it to the floor. I'll make a motion to approve rezone of subject property located at 2031 Division Street from SR4 to AR9.
I'll second it.
The discussion?
Yeah, I just wish I felt comfortable about this, you know, I think the whole problem with this is that the original plan that was brought forth to us with 90 units just really kind of shocked and soured everybody. And that's what makes me reluctant to do anything at this point. You know, I understand the financial issues with the school and that single family is probably not feasible unless these are monster homes, which would be silly in that location, let's face it. And I'd love to see cottage housing or too. I just have to believe that there's an alternate way to market this. Because I'm just really leery, because we can rezone it now, then this board can all change, and somebody else might have another idea of what's acceptable. I think we have a reasonable idea of what. Certainly not be 90 units on a piece of property right smack in that location. But I'm concerned about if it takes another 4 years to sell it, and this board flips. Different ideas, they could. I'm of the position that I can't support the rezoning at this point.
And as I mentioned, the other property we discussed, the sign I think that's still on the property says it's zoned for MR10, and it's not. I'm not saying you should falsely advertise for it, but I think there are ways, to your point, John, and I understand what you're saying, Scott, but that the community is open for rezoning given the right, development. I think what this discussion is maybe helped you all with, and help maybe Gina about, these are the guardrails of what we're looking to operate within. Don't even mention a 90 unit. Don't mention a 50 unit. It's all it's going to do is get everybody upset, and then at the school board they're going to yell at us, and then we're like, but it doesn't even fit zoning. So I think if we were able to find a better way of marketing that, maybe Gina's experience now with the Madison one will help with that.
Is that our comprehensive plan does identify that AR9 zoning is appropriate. It's also following our comprehensive plan, not just go at a 90-unit building that would never have happened there.
Yeah, I can speak to that procedurally. I mean, the way municipalities have a lot of discretion when it comes to making zoning decisions. The legislative framework that we have is that it starts with the comprehensive plan and it kind of goes on down. And zoning decisions have to be made consistent with what the comprehensive plan shows. And as Scott indicated, the comprehensive plan clearly reflects this very zoning. So the way I view this, it's not my position to make a call either way. I view this from the perspective of what's the most defensible, depending on which way you guys go. Approving the rezone is absolutely consistent with the comprehensive plan. It fits the theme of what you guys approved, what you guys envision for the area long term. So that's consistent with the statute. That would certainly be approved. Not approving the rezone at this point, I think, is also defensible, based on the fact that you don't have a specific plan. It gets a little bit complicated, but statutorily, zoning decisions have to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So if somebody came in with a rezone to do manufacturing, for example, in this area, you could say, no, we can't do that. Comprehensive plan shows it basically being A9, essentially, which is what's going to be long term, unless you change your comp plan. That's rezoning it to manufacturing is a different animal from not rezoning it to AR9 right now, if you catch my. So I think it's certainly defensible either way you guys go. It's a much more ready defense when you rezone it to what the comprehensive plan shows it being. Now that you have a property owner that wants to do that, that's a very easy argument to make. But if the board's decision is to wait until you have a plan, I think that's defensible as well because it reverts to what's there.
I think we need to listen to the people that live around there, the residents, and they showed up for the planning commission. They showed up 2 weeks ago. They showed up this day. That actually live there.
Absolutely would only allow for any kind of development to happen that's appropriate for that area. Ever would. But I think, like I said, the other part of it is we've got a landowner as that wants to change his zoning property. Yes, we can all say school board. Well, the landowner, period. Just doesn't encompass only the village. Surrounding communities as well that have ownership in that property. Our comprehensive plan has been identified that that's what it is. The direction we should be going. Helping them their property that they own. I get that every surrounding property is thought of, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect their property values, and that's what we do when we get the developers here and we identify what we're going to allow to happen there.
Chris, since you spoke about the procedural, about the zoning approval or not approval, let's say we did approve it. We get a developer in, let's say it's some form of cottage housing, maybe it's something, it's townhomes, whatever. What process do we have to enforce those norms? To John's concern, let's say it's not the same board or something.
Well, it would have to comply. The condition of the rezone is that it's got to be an approved development plan before the zoning change effectively takes place. So it's sort of be kind of held in abeyance until they come through with their development plan and make the applications and get the approvals. Now, what those approvals entail are spelled out in your code. So if they check all those boxes, I think at that point you'd be hard pressed to say no to this development. If it checks all the boxes, I think then the rezone happens and then they get approved. Now, there's obviously a lot of hoops that have to happen though before they get to that point. There's things they have to do. You guys have standards for parking. You have standards for the design of the building itself. You've got a lot of standards that they would have to comply with. If they did all that, then yeah, they would get their approval. The other part, it's been mentioned a lot in terms of infrastructure strain and whatnot. Every development we do, frankly, if there's an impact on public utilities or whatnot, the developers have to pay for that. That's just the cost of doing business. So if at the end of the day they need to build a lift station, then that's what they're going to have to do to support their development. But yeah, if the rezone happens and they go through the process, they get their approvals, then it's a done.
And if that infrastructure work was to cause damage to somebody's by the developer, or? Well,
I think the specific concern I heard contemplated that you guys would be running sewer through her property. I can't imagine a scenario where that would be happening. But it's like anything else. I mean, even if it's done, the work is done in the right of way. If there's damage that's done to somebody, yeah. Against the developer. Well, you cover that with other contracts, but yeah.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Can I just have the motion read back, please?
I'm sorry, thank you. To approve the rezoning of the subject property located at 2031 Division Street from SR4 to AR9.
The discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? No. Is SR4? It was 2 and 4. All right. Oh, I would say yes. So it's three and four, yes. Consideration of Alpine Valley Sanitary Agreement.
No.
Okay, so, this agreement had expired in 2011. It was something Mike Miller was working on, and, I picked up recently to try to finish off. It's an agreement with Alpine Valley to take their sanitary sewage. As you know, we started doing that back in the 90s. And this agreement was a 20-year agreement which expired. We made some minor changes to it in some of the things. We were having some issues with Alpine Valley and hydrogen sulfide, which is sewer gas. And we made some changes to this agreement to deal with those concerns. There really is no financial piece to this, as they pay through rates. And the only thing I do want to point out to the village board is that originally, and I recently found this out, I had no idea, we did have an agreement with Alpine Valley Music Theater as well as Alpine Valley Resort. The way this works, all the sanitary sewage from both entities come to one lift station, which is Alpine Valley Resort, and then it's pumped to us up Highway 120 to a point where it becomes gravity fed at the village and becomes our responsibility. We've got the language in this agreement that we can control all the sanitary sewage, and the rates are all paid for by the resort. So essentially, the music theater sends their sewage to the resort and then pumps it all to us. So we only bill the resort. So don't really see a need to have an agreement with the music theater, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys understood that.
But it's up to the resort to collect from the music theater.
Correct.
And originally, it was set up that way because they were two separate entities for a while there.
And they still are two separate entities. But again, we only bill the resort.
We're metering it through, everything's going through the resort.
Correct.
I would say, since Dusty's not here, we don't have the same problem that we had with Dusty's situation, where we have a different metering setup. We're gonna only go through one meter.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Wait, can I ask a silly question? Why would we have had a hydrogen sulfide problem if it's a forced main? It's forced main, right?
Right, which inherently is why you have the problem. So the 10,000-foot view, the sewage sits in that pipe and it cooks, essentially, right? So that gas breaks down, and then when it sits for a long time, it has no oxygen, and it creates an acid. And then when that pump comes on, then it starts and pumps it to our gravity system, then it's introduced back into oxygen, which is when we have some issues.
So it's really due to lack of flow.
Correct.
More than flow.
And the length of their force main, it's so long. So they actually add a chemical at their lift station to combat this. Unfortunately, we've had some challenges with them in maintenance.
Has that caused any of our facilities to decompose prematurely? I mean, that's what that does, right? It breaks down concrete.
That is correct. So a couple of years ago, we had lined the sanitary manhole that they discharge into to deal with that. One of the things we've got in this new agreement is to make sure that they install a vent on that manhole to keep any more issues from coming about.
Was it Alpine Valley we had the billing issue
Yes.
for? And this will keep that from happening again too?
So really, the only thing it talks about in here is what their daily flows are.
That could change.
And if it does, they have to come to us and say, we want more flow. We want more capacity of your wastewater treatment plant.
My understanding is the village doesn't have to provide it.
Correct. I guess we don't. And the same thing with the music theater. If they wanted to provide additional flows or an additional connection through the resort, they would need to get approval.
Is this in line with similar to our other district agreements?
They're all a little bit different because they have variants, right? This one, the big issue is the hydrogen sulfide with them. So I would say they're similar in the way they're structured, but they've all got their own, individual issues.
It's not as much of a rate issue because we have one entity that we're negotiating with as opposed to some of the other multiple entities. Make a motion to approve the Alpine Valley Sanitary.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to resolutions, or ordinances resolutions. Resolution 2021-23, resolution authorizing contract, and individual to execute contract with, KS State Bank for plow truck purchase.
Motion to approve resolution 2021-23.
I'll second that.
I have a question. Jason, just a ballpark idea, how many years will this truck last us normally?
So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get into the habit of buying a truck every 5 years, so that truck will spend 20 years plowing snow on the streets, and then we currently have 5 big trucks, and then the last 5 years of its life at the sewer plant hauling sludge, and then we work it out for the next one.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Reports, services from 9/21 and from 10/12. Questions? Any, Booth Lake Memorial Park from 9:15. Any questions? Motion to adjourn. Second. Those in favor? Aye. Adjourned.